Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are witnessing history unfold in real time, something the world never thought possible. The regime of Alexander Lukashenko, long regarded as Europe's last dictator, is facing the gravest threat of its existence. For the first time, parts of the Belarusian army, the very institution that kept him in power for nearly 3 decades, are now openly defying his orders and joining the people. The walls around Lukashenko are collapsing and power is slipping through his hands faster than he can control. For years, Lukashenko has ruled Belarus with an iron fist, silencing opposition, controlling the media, and using his feared security services to crush dissent. But this time, the storm is not coming from the streets alone. It's coming from within his own fortress. Reports from across the country tell a story of divided loyalties. Soldiers refusing to fire on civilians. Commanders turning against the president they once swore to protect. The line between loyalty and rebellion has been broken. It all began quietly. Protests had been simmering for months as the economy crumbled under sanctions and corruption. People had grown tired of empty promises while prices soared and wages collapsed. The youth, inspired by the revolutions in neighboring countries, started calling for freedom, for democracy, and for dignity. At first, Lukashenko ignored them, then mocked them, and finally ordered the army to restore order. But what he didn't expect was that the very same army would begin to question those orders. In the city of Hodna, dozens of soldiers refused to move against peaceful demonstrators. Videos spread across social media showing officers laying down their weapons and walking side by side with the people. Soon other garrisons joined them. A wave of defection started rolling through the ranks and no one could stop it. What once was a symbol of fear became a symbol of hope. Inside the presidential palace in Minsk, Lukashenko's closest advisors panicked. Intelligence briefings told him that parts of the 5th Mechanized Brigade had declared neutrality, and that several Air Force pilots were refusing to carry out missions. The man who prided himself on total control suddenly realized he had lost command over his own military. His speeches grew angrier, his gestures more desperate. Meanwhile, opposition leaders, many of them in exile, called this a historic turning point. Satyana Tanovskaya, speaking from Lithuania, said, "This is not just a protest anymore. This is the beginning of a new Belarus." Her words were echoed by the crowds gathering across the nation, waving the red-white flag that Lukashenko had banned for decades. International reactions came quickly. In Brussels, EU officials urged restraint, but quietly celebrated the possible end of Lukashenko's authoritarian era. In Moscow, however, the mood was grim. Vladimir Putin, Lukashenko's strongest ally, watched with concern. The Kremlin fears that the fall of Minsk could spark a domino effect, that if Belarus breaks free, Russia could be next. Behind closed doors, Russian media began shifting their tone, preparing for a post-Lukashenko scenario. And then came the breaking point. On a tense Friday night, thousands of protesters marched toward the presidential compound. Riot police blocked the main avenues. But when the army units were ordered to reinforce them, many refused to act. Some even opened the barricades. Live streams showed soldiers joining hands with civilians. A moment that once seemed impossible became reality. The army had chosen the people. The following morning, Lukashenko appeared on state TV, visibly shaken but defiant. He claimed that foreign agents were behind the unrest, accusing NATO and Poland of orchestrating a coup. But his words sounded hollow. Even state broadcasters hesitated to repeat them. The once loyal propaganda machine was cracking. Inside the Ministry of Defense, chaos reigned. Some generals called for negotiations. Others demanded a crackdown. But without troops willing to obey, their power was symbolic. In several cities, local commanders negotiated ceasefires with protesters to avoid bloodshed. The image of tanks standing silently while civilians painted them with slogans became the defining symbol of the revolution. Meanwhile, Putin's aides in Moscow debated whether to intervene militarily. Some argued that losing Belarus would mean losing a vital ally and a strategic buffer against NATO. Others warned that sending Russian troops could ignite a larger regional war. Satellite images showed Russian military convoys near the border, but no official confirmation followed. The uncertainty itself added to the tension. By the end of the week, reports emerged that Lukashenko's private plane was being prepared at the Minsk airport. Rumors spread that he might flee to Russia or even to the UAE. His spokesperson denied it, but his absence from public view only fueled speculation. Protesters filled Independence Square, chanting, "He is gone. Belarus is free." The mood was electric but cautious. They had seen false dawns before. In one of the most emotional moments of the uprising, a group of former political prisoners stood on the stage in front of tens of thousands, calling for unity and forgiveness. "This is not about revenge," one said. "This is about reclaiming our country." Tears, flags, and chants filled the air. For the first time in years, hope felt real. Yet beneath the celebration, fear still lingered. Could Lukashenko attempt a counterattack? Could Russian forces cross the border under the pretext of stabilizing the region? Analysts warned that the next 72 hours would determine everything. If the army held its line and protected the protesters, the revolution would survive. If not, Belarus could plunge into chaos. Across Europe and the United States, leaders issued statements of support for the Belarusian people. Sanctions were discussed, but what mattered most was moral backing. Crowds in Warsaw, Vilnius, and Kiev gathered in solidarity, waving the same red and white flags. The world was watching, and for once, Belarus was no longer invisible. Inside the Russian media sphere, a new narrative started forming. Commentators began suggesting that Lukashenko had lost touch with reality, and that Moscow might need a more reliable partner in Minsk. It was a subtle but clear sign that even his oldest ally was preparing to move on. Meanwhile, footage circulated of Belarusian soldiers removing Lukashenko's portraits from their bases. One video showed a commander tearing down the dictator's image and replacing it with the national flag for freedom. He said that clip went viral, becoming the face of the new Belarus. In the countryside, farmers joined convoys bringing food to protesters in the capital. Teachers, doctors, and even former police officers formed committees to keep order without government control. A self-organized movement was replacing the old system faster than anyone imagined. In one dramatic scene broadcast worldwide, Lukashenko was seen entering a military helicopter, allegedly heading toward his residence outside Minsk. The footage filmed from a distance showed him looking out the window alone, isolated, defeated. Whether he was fleeing or regrouping, no one knew, but the symbolism was undeniable. The man who once believed himself untouchable was now on the run from his own people. As night fell over Minsk, fireworks illuminated the sky. Crowds sang patriotic songs that had been banned for years. It was a moment of triumph, but also of uncertainty. Revolutions are fragile. Power vacuums can be dangerous. Yet the spirit of unity was stronger than fear. Analysts compared the scene to the fall of the Berlin Wall or the collapse of the Soviet Union. A dictator losing his grip not through foreign invasion, but through the awakening of his own nation. For decades, Lukashenko had boasted that Belarus was immune to the revolutions that swept across Eastern Europe. Tonight, that illusion was shattered. The next morning, new developments confirmed what many suspected. Several top officials, including the defense minister, had switched sides. They called for immediate negotiations with the opposition and announced that the army would guarantee the safety of all civilians. The balance of power had officially shifted. From exile, Tinovsko released another message, calling for calm and for the start of a peaceful transition. "Let us build a country without fear," she said, "a country where no one disappears for speaking the truth, a country where the army protects the people, not the regime." In Moscow, Putin remained silent, avoiding direct statements about his longtime ally. Analysts said the Kremlin was buying time, calculating whether to recognize a new Belarusian government or attempt to salvage what was left of Lukashenko's rule. The geopolitical chessboard of Eastern Europe was being redrawn, and every move mattered. Back in Minsk, the crowds continued to grow. The old regime symbols were being removed one by one. The statues, the slogans, the propaganda posters. People hugged soldiers, thanking them for choosing the nation over tyranny. The once muted city was now alive with chants of "Long live Belarus." And as dawn broke over a country, awakening from decades of fear, one truth became clear: Lukashenko's era was ending. The revolution had moved beyond one man. It had become a movement of millions of voices, long silenced, now united. The world is watching closely, wondering what comes next. But one thing is certain: Belarus will never be the same again. The people have spoken, and this time the army has listened. The end of Lukashenko may not just mark the fall of a dictator, but the rebirth of a nation. Thank you for watching, friends. Stay tuned as we continue to follow this historic turning point. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video so the world knows what's happening. This is not just news. This is history in motion.